Okay, we're back again. Welcome to another episode of Beers with Andy. This is the second episode, and this week we're going to be trying out a new beer from Founders, a Michigan brewery, probably the number 2 brewery in Michigan, at least in terms of sales. And we'll talk a little bit about Founders' complicated, let's say, problematic history, if you can call something that's happened in the last year history. But first, I just want to check in with you, ask how you're doing, because I know I'm still kind of feeling a little bit raw, if I'm being honest. Now, of course, I'm dealing with the death of a friend, which complicating matters. I was sort of estranged, well, not sort of estranged, which is kind of a habit of mine. Now, it's also been an interesting week in that I kind of reconnected with an old friend too, so it's sort of like a balancing, interestingly, this week for me. But beyond the personal, in terms of what's happening in this country, I'm still feeling a little bit raw, clearly, because like this morning, first thing I did when I got back from my run was throw on this recent Flaming Lips record. It's a live recording of their Soft Bulletin record at Red Rocks with an orchestra, I think from somewhere. I can't remember if it's from Colorado or Oklahoma, but at any rate, like the very first track, super epic, and I started tearing up. It got to me. That was a record that had a lot of power. The way it spoke to me and a lot of people, and it's interesting that just happened to come back to it in times of trouble, and it once again had an impact. It's an album about life and loss too, and maybe that's part of it as well, but it definitely kind of kicked me in the heart a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm at after another week of this. But on to the beer. So Founders, let's open this bad boy up and talk about it. Founders, as I alluded to earlier, I love that you hear just like at a bar or something, you hear the bottle cap go flying. Founders has had some issues in their Detroit tap room, assertions of racism, harassment of a black employee, and as a result, I will be perfectly honest. I mean, I never liked Founders anyway, to be honest. I'm not a Founders fan. I'm a Shorts fan. I think everybody knows that. I think they're probably my favorite brewery, but at least Michigan-wise, but probably in general. So I've never been a big Founders fan. I've always found their beers to sort of taste kind of mass-produced, which is kind of funny because on the one hand, they are a micro, or at least they used to be, but they do mass produce, and I've always sort of felt like it tastes like it. Whereas, I mean, if you drink enough beer, you kind of know the difference between popping open a Two Hearted, which is a delicious beer, but it's absolutely mass produced, versus something like you go to Holmes in Ann Arbor, your local brewery, which is absolutely not mass producing. And I do feel like there is a difference in terms of quality, taste. I can't put my finger on it. It could just be that mass-produced beers are filtered, and I do enjoy an unfiltered beer. But anyway, I will be perfectly honest. When I saw this, my first reaction was, "Well, I'm not buying that. I don't support Founders. I won't buy Founders." And I don't know. I think probably because of this show, I thought, well, okay, we'll buy this 4-pack for the show, and because it kind of seems like an interesting time to talk about. We talk about this a lot in society in general, like how do you separate the art from the artist, or in this case, the beer from the brewery. If the brewery is problematic, should you be supporting them? Should you be drinking them? A lot of people will say no. A lot of people will say you shouldn't watch Louis C.K.'s latest stand-up special, or maybe you don't like Ricky Gervais, or whoever it might be. We all kind of have to decide for ourselves if we're going to support that thing or not, with our money, with our time, etc. So that's certainly an issue. Having said that, let's try it out. I want to give you a few details about this beer. It is a Imperial IPA, 9.2% APV, but ABV, not APV. But more interestingly, what they say they have done here is taken their 4 most popular Imperial IPA formulas, mashed them together into one. So this is, it doesn't seem like a good idea. I mean, it maybe theoretically it makes sense. Hey, let's take 4 things we really like: pepperoni pizza, chocolate chip ice or mint chocolate chip ice cream, and pickles. And I mean, like, right, not those. That's a dumb example, but it does sort of seem like taking 4 good things and mixing them together is not going to make one great thing. But let's find out. Not particularly floral. Not a lot going on here scent wise, but that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to taste bad. But you'll remember from last week, the Bell's Incessant tasted like it smelled, and I think that's kind of cool. So let's take a sip here. Whew, that's definitely a double IPA. You can definitely taste the 9.2%, or maybe not taste it. Yeah, taste it probably. Feel it definitely. I don't know if it's going to change my opinion on Founders beers by any stretch. And again, not just because of the problematic nature of the brewery and what's been alleged, but also just because I've never really been a big fan. I've certainly tried my Founders beers over the years, and I don't know. I always, if you gave me the choice, I would probably, if I could only drink one beer in my life, it'd probably be Humalupa by Shorts. But luckily, I don't have to choose. So, one more sip here. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know that I would buy this again or pick it up in a tap room or anything like that, unless there was absolutely nothing else and I really wanted, like, okay. So I'm good. Another topic here. I alluded last week to pot being legal here in the state and how that has changed my drinking. Basically, what's happened is if I want to get a buzz, I have an edible, and then I'll probably have a beer because, as everything is delicious when you're high. So I'll only drink like 1 or 2 beers. But whereas pre-legalized pot, because I really didn't mess with it too much when it wasn't legal because I was a teacher, and I mean, even though I'm white, I have zero interest in getting busted. I think. Let me try another sip here. Yeah, so anyway, point being, I probably am drinking less beer, but in the past, I would probably lean towards an Imperial like this because I want to get more bang for my buck. I had this idea that I want to go with the highest ABV I can find. Probably, I'm a big guy, or at least, I mean, I've lost 30 pounds this year, but I'm still, a 195-pound guy, and, it takes a couple 10% beers to really get me, feeling loose. Now, I can kind of enjoy lower ABV beers, which I would have in the past completely avoided, because, you're at least at my size, your system, your kidneys can only process, or can process, excuse me for the burp, there you go, a drink an hour, right? Isn't that kind of what it is? And when you drink the lower ABV beers, you've got to drink more per hour to kind of keep up with what your body is processing. Your body is processing the alcohol, and you, if you want to get a buzz, you got to stay ahead of that. Well, like I say, pot has changed my relationship with beer in that way. I'm not chasing that buzz because I'm getting that buzz in a different way. I also sleep like a baby. I'm telling you, I love it. It's expensive, but I love it. All right, I think that's it for me. This has been another episode of Beers with Andy. It looks like I'm doing these every weekend because I just don't have time during the week. If there's any beer that you want me to try out, leave it in the comments down there. Like and subscribe, all that blah, blah. But anyway, we'll see you next week.